Oh, rise now, ye tarnished, ye dead who yet live. The call of long-lost grace speaks to us all. Horalu, chieftain of the Badlands, the ever-brilliant Gold Mask. Fear, the deathbed companion, the loathsome Dung Eater.
So how many of you saw that and said to yourselves, oh yeah, that's me right there?
Alright, mate. Yeah. And now I've seen it here again. Never thought I would. What he does to those bodies. It was him. No question. That monster. He's lurking round here. Serves me right. Fucking bloody end. For a jumped up little shit with big ideas. Help me out. Would you, mate? I don't want to get cursed. Just let me die. I don't want to live like this. Not anymore. So, please. I will kill you and devour your corpse. Then the fox will truly be your own.
Be on your guard, I beg you. He's back. The Dung Eater, again. I can hear them, the spirits as they howl and lament in fear of the curse. And worse than ever, the reverberations of the twisted Malison itself. But after all this time, I've started to grasp it now. I can hear, in the Malison, another fearsome order.
Hello everyone, hello everybody, this is 41Celsius25, and today I'm going to talk to you about the man, the myth, the legend of Elden Ring. The one and only, the Bunk Baker, the Sewer Sous Chef, the Crap Addict, the Waste Waiter, the Septic Scavenger, the customer of McDonald's. I of course am speaking of none other than the Dung Eater. Some of you perhaps are wondering why, if we are talking of the Dung Eater, are we talking of him in this exact setting rather than where we strictly find him? Well, that is because when it comes to the Dung Eater, thematically, he is basically an omen. Omens, you see, live a very treacherous life, a very harsh, cold, dark, and scary life. One where their golden order that they serve and live under doesn't love them back, nor accept them. And if you are of the curse-born and also of a lower class, you are also not allowed to keep your horns untrimmed from your body. And in which case, you suffer some pretty unfortunate experiences in the matter. In general, though, omens live two kinds of lives, besides that They either serve as fodder for armies, or they are strictly just living underground. In places such as the capital. In general, omens are born as curseborn to the Golden Order. As curseborn, they are essentially very strong and very, they have unusual growths. In which case, that often becomes part of their utilization as fodder. And why they get used more so as fodder than as any sort of assets to any sort of construction or what else. And some would even retain their faith yet still into the Golden Order, such as Morgott would. Elsewhere, with the influences of Luminary Moog, Morgott's brother, we can find omens who would instead turn their back on the Order to serve this ideas and be in the practice of accursed blood magic. These omens excel at their fighting abilities and often specialize well in bleeding. They would also be unusually better dressed than other omens would be, as these ones have turned their back from the Order and seek out a better sort of ideas of living in return. On the exact opposite end of the spectrum, Morgott would not be so well nicely clothed, but would still be quite a powerful asset to the Golden Order, and even take rulership of the kingdom.
Put these foolish ambitions to rest.
Ultimately, general combat of most omens involves bleed, strength. If they're of Morgott's, then also of Dex, and also ridiculous ability to magically hit you seemingly no matter what. Now, some of you might be wondering, so what makes our Dung Boy here an omen? Well, for starters, if you're looking at the set, it's half obvious, but looking at his armor, it is called the Omen set. Now, the Omen set, it grants actually improved effectiveness, by the way, to that of the Omen Baron items. For starters. But let's look at these items carefully. Doll of a Curseborn Baron from the Erdtree's royal line. This is the regal one, where the horns are present. Uses FP to unleash many wraiths that chase down foes. Omen babies born of royalty do not have their horns excised, but instead are kept underground, unbeknownst to anyone, imprisoned for eternity. These memorial fetishes are fashioned in secret, and we also have one with the horns cut off. Omen babies have all their horns excised, causing most to perish. These fetishes are made to memorialize them. Nah. Please don't hate me or curse me, please. That alone should have some interesting, impactful implications. And as you can see, it is indeed the case that even those of the royal line were shackled and kept hidden away, as even Moog and Morgott, direct descendants of America, were given this treatment. But back to the set. The headpiece alone has some interesting implications, worn by the Dung Eater with form a vision of the landscape of his mind, and his appearance as he wished to see it. He wished to be seen as an omen. Malformed helm resembling an omen with its horns cut off. So basically, he intended to be seen as an omen with its horns cut off, meaning he was a common-born. The heart of an omen without the body to match. Could there be any crueler existence? What does it matter then if the curse claims it all? That also has some interesting implications. Let's look at his chest piece. Worn by the Dung Eater, the heavy sun-shaped medallion represents both the guidance he once saw and the ring to which it will all one day lead. This means he believed in the Order to some degree, even if he has some disagreements to it currently. He still has some kind of ideas and plans for it, as we've seen perhaps with a possible option for an ending. Let's take a look at that possible optional ending, with the mending rune of the Fell Curse can be used to mend the shattered Elden Ring. Loathsome rune gestated by the Dung Eater. Just looking at the icon alone gives you a lot of ideas, but let's read on. Used to restore the fractured Elden Ring when brandished by the Elden Lord. The reviled curse will last eternally, and the world's children, grandchildren, and even every generation hence will be its pustules. If order is defiled entirely, defilement is defilement no more, and for every curse, a cursed blessing. So essentially, those considered curse-born will no longer be considered curse-born. And now you understand a bit of the nature of what is actually behind our boy here. Now, this doesn't account for all the details of him, as there is also the seedbed curse, which, for all we know, is more than likely some kind of heart or liver of an omen. Curse grown on a corpse, killed and defiled by Dung Eater. A tender pox afflicted with omen horns. The Dung Eater cultivates the seedbed curse on corpses. By doing so, he prevents dead souls returning to the Erd Tree, leaving them forever cursed. One of the most loathsome things found in all the lands between. And that is because anything a little bit out there from the normal is basically just straight up frowned upon. Like if you're humanoid, if you're a god essentially, you're fine. If you're not, if you have like these weird growths like they do, where it grows tumorously, you're essentially massively frowned upon. And same goes for all other kinds of demi-humans, from the living bats, from the ape-like ones, and even the misbegotten. If you were of, not of their original order estate for the Golden Order, like we see of the soldiers, you're essentially curse-born, roughly, and not that of the Golden Order, although they might try to incorporate you still to their services. I should actually clean that up. I mean to service them, by the way. But with that much alone, we have all the incentive of what is perhaps Dung Eater's general motivation. But what really goes on with him?
There you are. You warded off my blessing, despite the curse stirring within you. No one has succeeded in that before. How? I thought. Then it hit me that you are, in fact, me. And I am the Dung Eater. It is my flesh that must receive the blessing. Give me your blessing. Defile my flesh with the seedbed curse, again and again, until it is done. Until a cursed ring coalesces that may one day defile order itself. Countless I have killed. and countless I have defiled. And soon the fruits will be born. Hundreds will be reborn cursed. And they'll bear thousands of cursed children, who bear tens of thousands more. A few of those will be born just like me. And they'll kill and defile and bless in my stead. The rotten fools. My fate was the grandest, most brilliant of them all. A curse upon them all. They'll be born cursed, all of them, along with their children. And their children's children. For all time to come. Curse you, Golden Order. One day, you'll get what's coming.
Well, in general, this is where certain details get a little more speculational. Or I should say just left to speculation. I don't know if speculational is the word, probably not. But Dungy Boy here, well, he supposes himself as being resistant to the curse, the pox upon his flesh, which would suggest that he has actually tried, perhaps, or someone has tried to him, or perhaps he was even born amongst the Omen kind and lacks the body to match. Those are the three general options that leads to how and why. And let me kind of further explain this into a detail. He considers us as in fact him, and he is the Dung Eater. Now, in general, I don't think the name Dung Eater is just related to the idea that he likes to eat dung, but also as a symbol of what is become of his lifestyle in some way. Either he changed his lifestyle to become this way, in some kind of pity or sense of semblance to the omens against the Golden Order. Or something else. But to me that sounds like the most likely case scenario. Because he definitely seems to be a tale of revenge. A tale of getting even with the Golden Order, as I should say. But as for who could possibly try influencing him into this such a thing, well, only two personal applications could have been the case if it wasn't him inducing it in a more procedural kind of mannerism. Either Luminary Moog, which we do know for a fact Moog has been down here. In fact, we even find his shackle here. Using it like in his fights, it definitely has some effect on Moog. And Moog himself was against the Golden Order, so it's very possible he was partially to blame. It could have been Vare, who is a war surgeon, who is practically more described as a mercy killer, which could have some implications as to what kind of sick, twisted things he's definitely had to work with for his patients. In which case, there would be some ties to surgical handling as an inspiration to what the Dung Eater does with these innards of an omen he places inside of his victims. So those are two theories. Then the last is that he just sort of tried putting it in himself. He wanted to become an omen. He felt a natural pity of them once he discovered them and couldn't truly become an omen himself. Only his body would come to fight it instead, in ways that were unexpected of most, including those of the Round Table, which he would have been invited to for not being fully cursed away from grace entirely, but still physically holding and manifesting an amount of this accursed state within his body that Rodrigo would point out to us that it is more than likely the case, and he lies his own sort of order on the inside of him, which we would find to become the Cursed Mending Rune. But I myself am not entirely convinced that these are the only true applications of how he became who he is. In fact, he very well could have been born amongst omens, but was apparently human enough that he was recognized thoroughly and properly as a tarnished. Otherwise, it could add to the idea as to why he has so much sense of pity, guilt, and anguish for that of omens, of how they're treated so badly and whatnot, and that he would go out of his way to personally butcher, murder, and curse quite many people. And who knows how many he must have actually pulled this off to, and how many perhaps are even the omens we face today. Just one little side detail, when it comes to if Vare had anything to do with this, there is actually an interesting detail to note about Vare, and that is that he is sort of considered immune to sort of like, his body is able to handle the accursed blood of Moog. Let me see if I have that item with me. It's basically that. None but Vare, that is, though he was an exception. Of the surgeons that were abducted by the Lord of Blood, none were able to tame the accursed blood. To me, this is actually an interesting detail as to what counts as taming it. Just simply not being overly afflicted by it, or what? Now, actually being, like, transfused with the blood by Vare, our eyes would turn, like, blood red. The whites of our eyes, that is. Which is certainly a nice little touch in my opinion. But, it's nothing we can directly tie to that of the Dung Eater, who completely lacks this effect that we've seen. And quite frankly, He could really pass for either type of invader, honestly, when we actually fight him. Though I'm more reluctant to believe it's more along the lines of basic of the recusants or something. But I don't know. Personally, I think he could have investigated a number of body groups, that is, from the Volcano Manor to the Halig Tree and the General Golden Order as the main leading head honcho groups around these parts, and what their general takes and beliefs of their people were. And he basically would do his little special treatments at either location, from the body we find upstairs of one of these buildings to a body we find in essentially the real round table hold, a body we can find in the Ashen Capital, a body we can find in the Volcano Manor, and 2 bodies we can find in the Halig Tree. This could be like a sign of his disliking people of those general locations. Like the Halig Tree, they offer sort of like a promise and like a charm to people, and that's really majority of it. Otherwise, there's the undefeated swordswoman, and Mikula is just a special sort of prodigy for himself, or at least to that of Radagon. But not much more we can really dive into that without any further content, really. An interesting detail, though, to mention is on the fact that he is considered a common omen. A commoner omen, I should clarify. In that he was once in a cell with Blackguard Bogart, who also is considered a lower class petty thug. In fact, they both shared a cell, and that Bogarts would have a sort of taste for prawn and crab, which were considered poor man's food for their overabundance. Now, that one I've learned very on the recent end from someone else's research, which I thought was actually quite interesting. And really has like a nice little touch to his detail as a character. And it makes me almost wonder if there is more to that detail than meets the eyes. Like, what makes him a lower class individual? Is it that he just actually wasn't born noble? Or was it that he was born under that of the general tarnished population? So that's actually a curious little speculation I wanted to shed a little bit of like a... I want other people's opinions on this one. But otherwise, I do believe there really isn't much else we can really rightfully assume here, as we don't actually find any notable omens that would suggest that they would know of him too well. And us not really seeing whoever locks him in here really just leaves it up to our imagination that the omens that dislike him catch him when he's just at rest, basically, and just toss him in here where he belongs. You know, in the dung pile. They say instead of going to the corner, he just goes into the pot where he washes it before he goes to eat it. the Dung Eater's freshest fruits and vegetables comes directly from your anus. Corn, broccoli. I do also wonder how much of that design is straight up blood and guts from people he encounters, and how much of that is just straight up sewage material. But ladies and gentlemen, let's flush this toilet. Thank you all so much for watching. This is 401 Solstice 25, Winter Solstice 8, and you have yourselves a great day. And bye-bye.